Hello, everyone. It's Mike Trim, WPTV morning anchor. I am joined by Kast Construction Vice President Jim Rhinehart, and we are speaking about what happened this morning in Miami-Dade County, the 12-story partial condo collapse. And Mr. Rhinehart, just want to thank you for your time and just bringing you in as kind of a subject matter expert. Kast Construction, very well known in the area, the construction of 2 City Plaza and 1 West Palm, those projects happening right now in West Palm Beach, 30-story projects. Your company well-versed in those type of operations. And just first and foremost, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Mike. Absolutely.
Jim, I just wanted to ask you, when it comes to that type of material, that type of a structure, as we are searching for answers and the correct questions to ask, what exactly are we looking at when we see a picture like that and say, gosh, what happened here? How was it built? What expertise could you lend to help us understand things just a little bit more of the questions we're asking today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to conjecture what could have caused something like this. It's catastrophic, obviously. There are a lot of things here in South Florida that are unique, and along the coastline, particularly. We've structured a very corrosive environment with the salt air. That's typically a problem that we see with buildings with some age on them. Broward and Dade counties, Miami-Dade Building Department and Surfside Building Department have a 40-year recertification program, which this building was completed in 1981. So it's actually up for its 40-year recertification right now. I believe that may actually have been in process on this project. And some of the things that they're looking at are the foundations in good condition? Is there any kind of soil subsidence or anything? What's the condition of the structure? Something we see commonly on these with the corrosive environment of salt air. Salt and chlorides are super corrosive to steel, which of course in a concrete structure like this is the reinforcing that's all inside the concrete. So if any of that gets exposed, the steel starts to corrode and it swells and it begins a long, slow path of degradation of the structure. So those are some of the reasons why the 40-year recertification program is in place. It's difficult to know, impossible really right now, what would have caused something like this, and then of course there's, the kinds of things that could just be random events, did truck back into a column that caused a progressive collapse of a section of the structure, like, things that we really can't know, and in my mind, like all we can do is just thank God that there weren't, potentially more casualties than there are, and be thankful for the first responders to help out and with those that did.
Absolutely. And with your expertise in construction this close to the water, this close to the beach, when you see a high-rise condo that close to the beach, you wonder, okay, if something collapsed, what about the foundation? Like, what is it in a building like that that's put down for a foundation to build from the ground up that's so secure, you would think?
Right. So sure. So typically, buildings like this were and are built on auger cast friction piles. So essentially, it's designed by an engineer with expertise in soils based on tests done of the soils in site. Test piles are done, and essentially what this is it's a large diameter drilled hole anywhere from say 14 to 24 or more inches in diameter, and then reinforcing steel cage is lowered into that hole, and then the hole is filled with grout concrete essentially, and then the foundations of the structure are built on the top of those piles. In most cases they're designed as a friction pile, so that what you're looking at is it's driven down into the, not driven, but drilled down into the ground and then poured. And then the friction of the walls of that pile interfacing with the soils creates a resistive force that holds the building up. And then, pile caps are big sort of blocks of concrete and reinforcing steel that tie the tops of all those piles together, and then the building is built on top of that. And these are, historically very reliable foundation structures. They're, short of, some type of, geologic type of event or something that didn't show up in borings that had been done on the site or testing that was done on the soils. It's difficult to imagine why, building like this would function for 40 years and then all of a sudden fail catastrophically. Settlement is one thing on the order of, maybe half an inch or an inch or two, but, this is obviously, much more of an acute event than that.
When it comes to building here on the east coast of Florida, at least, people are asking, are sinkholes a possibility? Is that even a possibility in that kind of area?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going to put myself out there as a sinkhole expert, right? But we've all seen what happens with sinkholes. It can't be ruled out, put it that way, right? I mean, if you think of what the foundation system is that we just talked about, essentially a building sitting on concrete blocks, sitting on piles that are driven down or drilled down into the ground and are in friction. If the ground that all that's relying on subsides, then there's nothing underpinning the building. So, I certainly have not seen that happen, haven't been involved in any case like that, but it can't be ruled out at this point.
Of course. And your an area of expertise with construction, and sometimes you have to have more construction on top of an existing building. It appeared, there was some roof work being done, but when it comes to codes and when this was built, what's different now that you have to meet versus 1981 and a 40-year inspection 40 years later? What do you have to do differently now to secure a structure?
Well, I mean, really the biggest thing that's changed over the last 40 years, and a lot of it's a result of Andrew, which of course is, almost 30 years ago now, really pertains more to the envelope of the structure or of the building than it does to the actual structure of a building, right? Things like, how is the roof adhered to the building so it doesn't blow off in a hurricane? How are the windows designed and attached so that they don't blow out in a hurricane? But those have been some of the biggest changes over that period of time. But none of those really seem like they would be related to what we're looking at here.
Yep. Is there anything else? I know you have a tight schedule today, and we thank you for joining us. Is there anything else that jumps out at you? I mean, obviously, other than the catastrophic damage and the rescue efforts, is there anything that jumps out at you with your area expertise that we should be asking about, or that could answer people's questions a little bit better about this catastrophe?
Honestly, no. I mean, I've spent a little bit of time this morning just poring over the pictures and the video of the collapse from the surveillance camera from the adjacent building, and it's difficult to determine. I mean, you can see that in the video that the collapse sort of starts from the center of the building and moves out from there, but there's nothing really in that gives cause for any particular line of speculation as to what might have been the cause.
What else would you like to add, if anything, Jim?
I don't think really anything else. Just our thoughts and prayers go out to the folks affected by this, and just very thankful that there wasn't more loss of life than what's been reported. It's really pretty amazing, and I think we just need to be thankful for that, and again to the first responders that helped with those injuries on site, and the bravery to go into a building that is partially collapsed and you don't know why. So.
I have one more quick question, and then we'll get you out of here. As far as there's the 40-year recertification that you mentioned and the inspection with that, how stringent are OSHA? That's a organization, obviously, that deals with kind of structures and buildings. Like, how often are they randomly inspecting a building like this, or is it just every 40 years and that's it?
So OSHA is occupational safety, right? So when it comes to construction, while we have any construction type of operation or repair work in process, they're going to be very diligent about making sure that we're doing things properly to protect the safety of the folks that are doing the work. When it comes to safety to occupants of a building, really that comes down to the building departments. And, I have to point out that, Broward and Dade counties really kind of lead the way with the 40-year recertification process. To my knowledge, there isn't really a more stringent version of that anywhere out there. So, the fact that the 40-year recertification is a requirement by these building departments, I think is a very effective approach. And, we're not seeing this, as a common occurrence. And it is a very difficult environment. Anybody that spends any time on the beach knows that the sand is a shifting thing and the salt environment is very corrosive. So it's a challenging environment for a building to sustain in. So it's until we understand really what the cause of this was, it's difficult to try to think about, how we turn that into, sort of future prevention.
Jim, I really appreciate your time. If there wasn't anything else, we will be in touch, and we appreciate your expertise for this StreamYard today.
Sure. Great talking to you, Mike. So long.
Thanks again.